Hello folks, Engines for Christ with you here again today, and here's another video on our first Jeep. At the time I filmed this we hadn't gotten the second Jeep in yet, but obviously I got a video out saying that we did get that second Jeep in, thankfully. So as you can see right now, my dad with the orange gloves is writing the numbers on the cover of the spark plug wires as he's taking them off of the spark plugs. And that is hopefully so we know which order they go in when we put them back on. It's going to be a while before we put them back on, so the numbers may not still be on there. So throughout the video, if you see orange gloves, that's going to be my dad. If you see black gloves, like right there, that's going to be me. So right now we're just taking the spark plug covers and the wires off the spark plugs, because we're going to be taking the spark plugs themselves out, and we're going to see if we can get the crankshaft to rotate at all. So at this point there's just a whole bunch of dirt around the spark plugs, and we really don't want to get that inside of the cylinder and get the inside of the cylinder dirty. So right now I'm just taking the air hose, blowing around each spark plug, and you can just see how much dust is coming out of there. There is a lot of dust around each of those spark plugs, and if by chance we end up knocking some of that dust into the cylinder, it would not be very good for the cylinder or the engine when we try and go to start it up. Alright, and then I'm just going to go back over each spark plug, make sure that I got all the dust out, dust and dirt and grime and grease and everything else. And back over one more time. And just like that, we have all the dirt and dust out from around the spark plugs, so now it's time to go and try and get those out. So as you can see here, my dad's starting to work on one of the spark plugs. It ends up being that they are actually really loose, so it's going to be pretty easy to take them out, and we're starting to worry about what we're going to find inside of that cylinder with them being that loose. So at this point I do decide to get out a large spark plug socket so that I can take the spark plugs out a little bit easier, and I'll finish the spark plugs with the help of this socket. So from here I think I'll just fast forward through the rest of this, since I'm sure you don't want to spend 1 or 2 minutes watching me take each spark plug out. So fasten your seatbelts, we're going to fast forward through this. So at this point I've already taken all the spark plugs out. Now I'm going to go in and spray some really good penetrating lubricant inside of each cylinder, and that will hopefully just help loosen it up, kind of get it lubricated, penetrate through any dirt, grease, rust, anything that's there, which there hopefully shouldn't be any rust. If there is, we have a bigger issue, but we'll get to that later. So right now I'm just going to fast forward through me putting Pierce in each cylinder. So after we got the lubricant in each cylinder, we let it set for just a little bit, and this is the point where we first try to turn the crankshaft, and we suddenly were starting to lose hope because it was completely locked up and we were turning the whole motor more than we were turning the crankshaft. So from that point we then decided to hook up an old battery that we had lying around. It was fully charged, and we just decided to repair a wire or two and see if we could actually try and get the ignition to help us turn the crankshaft, and unfortunately that did not work. And I had the camera focused on the engine, but I am actually inside the Jeep trying to turn the ignition over. So once again, I'm going to go and try and spray more of the penetrating lube inside each cylinder, and this time we're going to let it sit for a while longer, a few days, and we might come back and see if we can get it to work. So once again, I don't want to bore you doing everything repetitively, so I'm just gonna speed everything up once again, and once I have all the penetrating lube inside the cylinders, I'm just going to go back and replace all the spark plugs. That way no more dirt or water or anything else gets inside the cylinders, because welcome to Nebraska wind and weather, you are sure to get dirt and water where you don't want it. Alright, so I've let the penetrating lube sit for a few days. Now I'm going to come back with a 1/2-inch socket and once more try to turn the crankshaft and see if we can get any give or get anything to budge at all. And as you can see, I'm pulling pretty hard on it, and unfortunately nothing is moving at all. It is completely locked up right now. So we're going to have to resort to a different method, and I think we might have an idea of what that new method should be. Our new method of madness is going to include these 3 holes right here that you can see me pointing to. And the reason for that is we don't really want to shear off the bolt, and we can apply more force to these 3 holes if we put bolts or something through them and then a really long bar. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and take off these fenders. As you can see, I don't think they look very good on the Jeep. Not that the Jeep looks great right now anyway. So I'm just going to start by pulling off this rear driver's side fender. And yes, I said driver's side because on these postal Jeeps, the driver is on the right-hand side of the vehicle. And I have to admit, I can't wait to see what that's going to be like, driving on the right hand of the vehicle instead of the left side. So we'll have to see that. Hopefully that day comes soon. So once again, I have all sorts of bolts to take off of here. So I'm just going to press fast forward. And once again, fasten your seatbelts. We're going to go a little quick here. Almost off. Only a couple more bolts on this side. And we're getting there. And of course, I go to try to take it off, and as always, there's always one that I forgot. That probably attributes to the fact that I am a true blonde, as always. Alright, so now I'm just going to head on to the front driver's side fender, and just take that off real quick here. Alright, now the last fender comes off, and I did lose the footage to the 4th one. Sorry about that. Alright, so now for more of a fun part, I'm going to be taking the Jeep Grille off of the vehicle, and it's actually kind of fun to see the engine bay without the grille on it. I'm not sure why, it just seems funny. So I'm just loosening a couple nuts behind the grille, and here we go, the big reveal. And it's off. So it's kind of a funny picture there. Alright, so now you can see me actually trying to put my weight on the Jeep and try and turn it. Unfortunately, it's still stuck, but at least now it's a lot easier to get to. And coming up later in the video, I think we actually have a pretty good idea of a really good tool that can help us try and turn this, but you'll have to watch a little further to see what that tool is. And heads up, we did actually make it ourselves. My dad and I worked on it. So we actually do have a small welding unit, and that's what we used to make it. So I'm not going to show the process of making it. I apologize, but my dad was actually the one with the idea to make this tool, and I really like it, and I'm sure you will too when you get to see it later in the video. So unfortunately, it's at this point that I forgot that I hadn't taken the spark plugs out when I tried to turn it earlier. So I'm just going to do that real quick, and then I'll give it one more shot before I leave it for the day. Alright, and one more shot. Trying to crank on that thing. Let's see if it goes. Unfortunately, that's a no. It is solid. Alright, so we got the tool finished. Welded and everything, and bolted on currently. So you can see that it's just some metal pieces welded onto a rod, a really long rod. And now for the first time using the rod to try and turn the engine, you can see I'm almost turning the engine more than I am the crankshaft, but you can actually tell that it is budging ever so slightly, but it's moving, and every tiny bit counts here. So we're really excited at this point.
Oh, there you go. Hold on. There you go.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Come on. Yeah. Yay.
Okay, go up.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Go down.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! It's turning. It's turning. Oh, man, it's turning easy now.
And yes, before you tell me in the comments, I already know that I sound very weird when I get excited. But it was pretty fun seeing that thing turn. My dad's voice was actually in the foreground there. You could just hear me in the background. Maybe a little louder than him at some points. But you can see it's turning pretty easy now, so that was very exciting. So as I mentioned in my last short video on YouTube, I said I would take this valve cover off and show you what is inside, but unfortunately my camera was not working properly on the day that we took the cover off the first time. However, I'm excited to show you this now, especially since we have already gotten the engine churning, since now I can show you how the parts inside of here kind of work and move. Unfortunately, I made it sound like you would be able to see inside of the cylinders in the short video. I accidentally misspoke, as you can only see the valve rods and the valve rocker arms. I'll explain what I mean by those two terms when I take the cover off. So I'm just going to use a 1/2-inch socket to take these bolts off here real quick. Alright, so now to valve cover off, I just need to take off a couple hoses. So right here is, to my best guess, the fuel pump. That's about where I would think it would be. And the hose leading to it is metal, which would make sense for fuel since it would deteriorate rubber and plastic. So I just need some pliers to help me with that. There's some pretty strong pinch clamps on there, so I just need a little bit of help pinching those off. And I can get the hose off now. Set it aside. and it takes me just a little bit to move all the hoses, get them all out of the way. And as you can see, I'm having a little bit of trouble with this one, but at the end I just end up moving it to the front right there, and I'll just leave it there while I take the valve cover off and hopefully not knock any dirt from it inside of the valve cover. And now the fun part. Alright, and it just comes right off very easily. It came off just as easily the first time as well. And I need to try and take this hose off real quick because it kind of hinders me getting the valve cover off. Luckily it's just a regular screw hose clamp, so I'll just unscrew it, move it out, and I'll just try and twist the hose right off without breaking it, hopefully. And luckily I get it off and it's not broken, so that's a good sign. And now I can move that other hose that was giving me troubles earlier. I moved it down, and now I can carefully lift the valve cover up. And slowly maneuver it out. And unfortunately I got just a little bit of dust in the very front, which I'll have to come back later and clean out, but I'm finally getting the valve cover off. And there we go. It's completely out and set aside. Alright, so now that we have the valve cover off, you can see that there's 2 of the arm rockers for each cylinder, and same with the valve rods. So it's kind of a neat perspective on those. So unfortunately the rod tool that we made kind of gets in the way a couple times. But you'll see as I rotate the crankshaft, the valves open and close, which is what the valve rods are doing. They're opening and closing those valves, like the air and the exhaust. And it's just kind of neat to see the arm rockers pull up and down when I rotate the crankshaft. It might be a little easier to see if it's a little higher speed. You can just see the movement a little easier. Alright, so I'm just getting a different perspective for you on this. So over here you can actually see the springs on the arm rockers, and so I'll let this clip roll too. Also, as a side note, that squeaking that you hear, that's actually our rod tool. It's hitting the water pump, so not to worry about the crankshaft or anything. Alright, so now I'm just going to spray some penetrating lube inside to keep the cylinders lubricated. I would like to thank you all for tuning in until the end. I hope you are as excited as I am that we finally got the crankshaft turning. Have a great day. Thanks again for watching, and God bless. This is E4C, over and out.